You're listening to the Sports Scramble podcast, where four friends serve up a weekly plate of sports with a side of SEC bias. Now, here are your hosts, Chet, Jacob, Wade, and Tyler.
Let's go!
Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Sports Scramble podcast, brought to you by Belly Up Sports. It's the three of us, the three musketeers, myself, Wade, and Jacob. Tyler's having some power connectivity, internet, just all of the above. Nothing's working for him. I think this might be the first time just the three of us have done a show together. So 111 episodes in. Look at us go.
It's the trio the world didn't know they needed.
Yeah, it's a trio they didn't know we needed. Not a whole lot of action packed, which I guess, action today and late last night. Texas, Oklahoma officially in the SEC. Texas, in Texas fashion, held a big festival with fireworks and Pitbull, which really random get there. Pitbull to perform as they join the SEC.
That just means somebody canceled on them and Pitbull was available.
I mean, I feel like, let's see, Texas, it's Austin. There's a lot of notable alumni from there. I mean, you've got Matthew McConaughey. I know he's not a artist per se, but he is an actor. I'm sure he can get up there and do something for the school. But they went all out. Oklahoma, I didn't really see anything, but man, I already hate Texas Twitter. It is quite the shit show over there. So arguments between them and Tennessee on who the real UT is. Them getting upset, saying that they don't care about horns down. You can do it all you want, but you still get penalized. It's just quite the madhouse. So, what are y'all's first impressions? Texas, Oklahoma. It's been talked about for 2 years, but they're officially in the SEC.
It's old news at this point. I think we've all been waiting for this day for quite some time. Now it's just official, like you said. Thought it was weird that Texas welcomed themselves to the SEC.
Yeah, that was strange. That was strange.
But I think the real welcoming was when they stole their new renewed rivals head coach in baseball the day after they lose the championship. So I think that was their welcome to the SEC moment.
Yeah, I guess we didn't cover that because it was Tuesday of last week when it was announced with old Schlossnagel being plucked from A&M to come to Texas. A&M got their head coach now. They've promoted their hitting coach. I cannot remember his name, but I think that's going to help them out in the transfer portal because a lot of their big names are going to stay because they promoted a guy from within. But all right, early predictions. Fletch, what's Texas SEC schedule? What's their record for the first year?
I'll go overall record for them for the first season. I will say that Texas goes 7-5.
Oh, so not a great year. So you're not high on Quinn Ewers and the Heisman hype?
No, I'm not, because the problem is everybody in the SEC is going to beat up on each other. To Wade's point, I think that these two new additions is just the start of, it begins the beginning of the end, I think, and that really is kind of, for football, at least, I think that's probably the case. For baseball, it makes it more competitive, far more competitive. Now that those teams are out of the Big 12 and into the SEC, that's huge. Even women's softball, now that you have Oklahoma joining as a powerhouse. Teams. So it's going to be interesting for all sports. Basketball, not so much. Oklahoma's not been a factor, and Texas hasn't been a factor since Kevin Durant. So it's been a long time. But
Mo Bamba, man.
Yeah.
Can't forget about him.
True. But yeah, I think the main tie is football, obviously. But for Texas, I just don't see a great season. It's an adjustment season. The teams that have been in the SEC, I think they know how to handle business already. It's going to be a very different approach for both of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, Texas has got the money. It's no surprise, right? They just give out Lamborghinis to their recruits. It's Oklahoma, I think. It's a very similar because Texas A&M and Missouri joined at the same time. I have a feeling it's going to be a similar intro into the SEC. Oklahoma was, or Missouri was like a powerhouse when they joined, kind of. I mean, they were very hot for the first like 2-3 years, and then we haven't heard anything for like the last 10 years until last year, where they like made a little bit of a run. I think it's going to be what Oklahoma does.
I mean, Oklahoma's going to be lucky if they make a bowl game. I think this first year. I think in reality, because they just don't have too much. I mean, it's been downhill ever since. I mean, Caleb Williams and the Lincoln Riley leaving, and
Yeah,
I
versus that.
say all the way back to Baker Mayfield. I mean, so it's really been a struggle for Oklahoma the last few years. I just don't see it turning around yet. Give them 3 or so, like maybe 3 seasons. Maybe after 2 years, get enough recruits. Thing is I mean, if you want it, if the 2 teams that join in the SEC, look, it's not going to be a cakewalk to get recruits either. I mean, that's just not the case, guys. Guys are going to come in and want to play at the best of the best SEC schools. It's not going to be I'm playing in the SEC now. It's going to be I want to play for the best SEC school as possible. And there's going to be tiers, I think, to those teams, as there's always been in the SEC. The question is, what tier do those teams come in, and what tier do they finish at?
That's true. The SEC logo, it was revamped with them, and it's really annoying because it's not evenly spaced. I don't know if y'all saw this on Twitter. It's like whoever the intern that designed this should be fired. So they got to fix that. But the EA Sports came out with their toughest places to play, and speaking of SEC teams, Oklahoma is on that in their top 10. Texas is not, which I was kind of surprised. But I guess, I mean, I don't know. I know more about Texas than I do Oklahoma in terms of stadium wise. But you can't really hold too much stock into that because they have Texas A&M as the toughest place to play in college football currently, which is asinine. I mean, I think their record is like 12-5 over the last couple of years at home. Like they've dropped a good number of games.
With losses to App State and Miami, I think.
Yeah, so I don't know about the toughest place to play, but it's supposed to update through rankings are subject to change in future updates, as they say. But it'll be interesting to see how the Texas and Oklahoma crowds, because they tend to show up at noon games, will they show up at night? That's the real question. Will they be able to sustain their partying from the Big 12 noon kickoff to the SEC on ESPN at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock? And Oklahoma gets a rude awakening traveling to Baton Rouge first year. Of course, Texas, I don't know their schedule off the top of my head, but Texas A&M, that's going to be a great game November 30th. It just feels like all that bad blood has been brewing. And, of course, with the baseball coach, that's another topic of discussion. And, you know, they're saying he betrayed them, but he was going before the season started. And a lot of yada yada, as what is that, the T-Mobile commercial that's been talked about. What do you think, Wade? Any punishments to come out if it's true that Schlossnagle was recruiting players to Texas while he was playing in the postseason?
I think it's just par for the course. I mean, I don't know that they're all that tightly watching that. I think it probably happens. If he was, I mean, shame on him. You had your team in a position to win a national championship, and if you weren't truly there, he probably should have just stepped away. But ultimately, they did make it very far. Braden Montgomery didn't even play, so it was a really good effort from those guys. That's why I think he probably wasn't tampering much, because it'd be hard to go to war for your coach if he was in that situation. So I think truly everybody woke up the day of the national championship thinking that he was going to remain where he was, and he might even have been on the fence about it too. But at the end of the day, money wins.
Yeah, and he apologized to that reporter. I don't know if y'all saw that. He asked the question like, "Coach, what's the rumors when you come in and talking to, and we hear you're talking about taking the Texas job. Can you comment on that?" He's like, "That's selfish of you to ask me, blah blah blah." It's like asking if so and so is going to the big leagues. apparently afterwards, he walked to that reporter and said, "Don't you ever ask me another question again. Don't ever speak to me again. I don't ever want to see you in one of my press conferences." The reporter showed up at the Texas one, and he was like, "Yeah, I just want to apologize. A lot of emotion after the game, and I didn't mean what I said." He started to open up his press conference with that. So, reporter, he should have been like, "Coach, you want to talk about what just happened?" But
yeah, you're a little happier now that the check hit the bank.
Yeah, I think he was worried about getting that direct deposit.
I mean, if I was that reporter and I was there, for both circumstances and things like that, here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's a job, and
you got to ask the question.
You got to ask the question. And look, if it came down to it, and you're there, and he accepts the Texas job, and it's his introductory into the job or whatever. Look, I would be that person that stands up and airs it out, be like, "Hey, since you decided to come up to me, last time and basically told me to shut up and not to speak of that, what do you have to say for yourself now?"
I would say, is this a job that you would not take any other jobs for?
Yeah, is this the job you plan on retiring from? That's staying here for the rest? Are you putting every ounce of soul that you have into this job? Are you leaving your family?
Take his.
And he goes, "I'm leaving my family." Man, your family's in Fort Worth and you were at College Station. That's an hour and a half drive, 2 hours tops. Like, chill out. But I digress. Old news. But welcome Texas and Oklahoma, I guess. There's our official welcome. Neil mentioned they have to play Texas has to play Bama and Georgia both this year, so there's your welcome. I think they get Georgia pretty early on in the year.
7-5.
They could hang with Alabama, but I think they probably go 9-3 or 8-4.
But it's everybody's fever dream now that Texas is in the SEC, because it's been years of how Texas is back, and now it's Texas could be on their back halfway through the season, and that's one of those things where they're going to get a taste of their own medicine more than likely. Yep. I think
they're going to have for every game. That's the difference.
And you're going to piss a lot of people off throughout the country as far as fan wise, because Texas is going to have so many primetime games that we're going to be sick and tired of watching Texas by week 6. That I won't want to watch another SEC football game. Just it's going to be prioritized, and that was part of ESPN's marketing to get the SEC too. Was kind of we're going to get as many primetime games as possible. So you better believe every Saturday it's just going to be all day long of SEC football. And for those that are SEC fans, sure, that's fantastic. But I think it kind of other things take a back burner to it, other games and other networks. The Big Ten took CBS there.
Yeah, have fun with them.
So it's going to be
4-hour football games.
It's going to be different. So it's going to be very different from a broadcast perspective too this year for almost everybody.
No Big Ten at 11 o'clock in the morning.
They will. They'll still have the big noon kickoff. I mean, there's gonna be instances where that happens.
Well, it's now the Big 16, right? Is that, and then it's for them, and the Big 12, I think, is the Big 18.
Well, they haven't changed the names, but
right,
number of teams.
Then you have the Pac-2 with what is it, Oregon State and Washington State, right?
Yep. They officially joined the West Coast Conference today as affiliate members for, I think, baseball.
Sounds like fun. So speaking of Texas, I'm looking at the EA Sports toughest places to play, and Texas is at number 19. Oklahoma, like I mentioned earlier, it's at number 8. We'll just go off the list here. 1 is Kyle Field. 2 is Bryant-Denny Stadium. 3 is Tiger Stadium. 4 is Ohio Stadium. Ohio State, not Miami, Ohio. I have to clear that up. 5 is Georgia.
I have to play them.
6 is Penn State. There you go, Jacob. 7 is Wisconsin. 8 is Oklahoma. 9 is Florida State. And 10 is Florida. I think it's wrong. No bias. LSU is probably the toughest place to play in the country at night, where we're going to have Neil on in a little bit, former LSU manager. I want to get his opinion on the Kyle Field ranking because I know he's been there a couple of times, as well as Bryant-Denny Stadium, which I would imagine is up there. But I've been reading a lot of articles, and LSU has been the just overwhelming favorite as the number one. Kyle Field is just shocking. Do you think that this was put together as a talking piece? We're talking about it right now. Is this a media advertising ploy, marketing ploy by the EA Sports crew to get us to talk about the toughest places to play?
They want to get eyes on it as fast as possible, and as many eyes on it. I mean, it's marketing, and they knocked it out of the park. I mean, it's a success on their end. So, I mean, I think it's a win for them. But, yeah, I had my own opinion about the list and who I thought the top 5 should be, kind of based on, what we've seen throughout the years.
5, Jacob? Let's hear it.
I would say number 1 would be LSU, just atmosphere-wise throughout the season. And they get so many night games that it really probably is the toughest place to play.
We have no 11 a.m. games this year. They didn't announce that, so all the night games, baby.
Well, there could be a couple 2:30s.
Yeah, I know there's gonna be some afternoon games, but
so from there, I'd put Penn State. I put Beaver Stadium at 2.
The whiteout, yep. We gotta get a game there. We gotta find out when the whiteout is to try to make it happen.
I'm going this year. So
where's the invite? What are we doing here, Jacob?
So yeah, that's well, I'm gonna try to go. They don't announce the whiteout till partway through the season, but it'll be Penn State, Ohio State that'll be going to. So I'm hoping that's the whiteout.
Nice.
But yeah, Beaver Stadium at 2. 3, I would probably put Alabama. I would probably put Bryant-Denny there. 4.
Well, and let me ask you about the Alabama. So Alabama, okay, no more Nick Saban, right? So you kind of expect their domination to drop off, but they were beating teams so single-handedly that the stands would be empty by halftime.
So it's more about the quality of the opponent than the stadium there. Sure. But that does factor into toughest places to play to an extent.
Sure. It does. I mean, if LSU didn't play who they play, there's no way they would be at number 1. I mean, that's just not. I mean, that
I guess what I'm trying to say is there's been many games, and like I said, Tiger fan bias here, where I've been at the stadium and that crowd has willed them to win close ones. Sure. I feel like Alabama, it's just tough place to play because they're like
because they're really good.
Yeah, because they're really good. What does that look like this year?
I think that plays into it, but I think that's why you saw a team like A&M on the flip side get the number 1 spot because they might not be the best team, but they do have 110,000 people that are very loud. They're very spirited. I don't think they're number 1.
I mean, if we wanted to go based off of numbers and sheer numbers, then yeah, okay, LSU 1, Penn State 2, Michigan 3,
Tennessee.
I don't know about
probably giving it to Ohio State based off of how they're projected to be this year and the amount of people.
Yeah, but we could have the same argument with them, with Ohio State, Alabama, kind of have the same issue, and that is they've both been really good in the past. Are they going to be really good in the future? And we just kind of don't know. And all this is based off of past. I mean, we can't speculate the future when we say toughest places to play because 3 years from now, who knows who the toughest place to play is going to be. I don't agree with Georgia at 5 at their stadium being anywhere remotely close on this top 10 list. I mean,
I think that's another victim of the strength of the team.
Sure.
Right? I mean, it's like...
But it plays into it because LSU had a down year and lost to Troy at home. I don't think that makes Death Valley any harder of a place to play, but LSU fans certainly weren't as passionate as they could have been if the team was on that run in 2019.
Here's the thing. I'm thinking of stadiums that more than likely are going to be packed from the time the game starts to the time the game finishes.
So you can cross Ole Miss off that list. Go ahead.
They don't count because they have under like 65,000 seats.
Right. But
it was quite loud though.
Places that just aren't going to empty out. LSU won't empty out more often than not just a committed fan base there they're not going to empty out. I've seen maybe once or twice in the entire
like
time
a
that I've seen games there.
non-conference game, yeah,
Sure.
they're gonna third quarter. People are thinking about trying to beat the traffic. It's a blowout, which
Like
I think,
myself.
yeah, fudgely
At
so.
that point, it doesn't matter because
I
the
think
game's
it's
in the bag.
in conference games and I
Right.
mean, even if it's a blowout of an in conference opponent, that stadium's still pretty full.
Right. So there's both sides of the spectrum when you think of are asses going to be in seats from the time it starts to the time they finish, and also the opponent and who they play on a week to week, season to season basis. If it's a night game, if it's a day game, look, there are times when Tennessee plays at 2:30 in the afternoon and they're just as loud as it would be at night. Now, I will say for LSU games, and I know that you guys can probably speak on this too, is the fact that 11 a.m. games. I went to LSU Tennessee
Me
at
too.
11 o'clock in the morning, and that was
That one sucked,
But
but
but that alone, the atmosphere, it was packed. I mean, there wasn't a seat in that place open, but it was different. The energy in the stadium was different in
it's
that
11 a.m.
game than it is at 6 o'clock in the evening. So it's you got to think of both. Penn State, I froze my ass off in November at a 2 o'clock game in the snow. And on the flip side of things, I've been to games in October at night that there's not an empty seat there. So there's different sides of things, and that's what we see with those. But yeah, I don't agree with number one. The teams that I don't think should be in the top 10, regardless of anything, is Georgia, Wisconsin, Oklahoma.
Wisconsin comes out of nowhere. I was
Yeah,
not expecting
that
Wisconsin.
doesn't
I
make
would have
any
thrown
sense.
Oregon in there. They were just outside the top 10
Yeah,
at
they're at
like number
11.
11.
I'd have put
Yeah.
Florida in the top 5. I think Florida is
Sure.
one of the hardest places to play in the country.
If
At
Florida
night,
was as good as LSU, it would be just as tough to play there. You have all the same factors.
yeah, I think the quality of the team is keeping Florida out of that top 5. I mean, they're at 10, right? But
you
Florida's
could also put Florida in there based off of environment alone. I mean, when they play football there, it's hot, it's humid, and we've seen teams that are visitors complain about that it is just
puts LSU and Florida in
awful.
the top 10 regardless.
Right.
Yep. Just in terms of atmosphere. Other rankings that were released by Mississippi State's at 25, which I think they should be disqualified because all their noise is from the little cowbells. Other rankings that were released, offenses, top 10 offenses, you got Georgia, Oregon, Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, LSU, Miami, Colorado, Missouri, Clemson. Colorado's laugh out loud funny.
And
I think that, yeah, Miami as well. I mean, they can't even kneel the ball right. Georgia, I get it. Oregon, I don't know. I think they're relying on the Bo Nix hangover to not be too long. I would probably have slated Texas at number 2 just because you have the return of Quinn Ewers, or possibly Ohio State I think at 3 instead of 5. But Missouri at 9? What are your thoughts on that?
They have some weapons. You got Luther Burden, who's probably the Blenikoff favorite before the season starts. Brady Cook's a good dual threat. All those teams that you mentioned have probably a top 10 ranked quarterback in the game, so you can see that it definitely holds some weight. But I would say Missouri actually is, if it was off last year, they would have the most balanced offense in the country. We'll see who steps in at running back, but yeah, I think they're a pretty balanced unit. Georgia's going to be a good unit with Beck and their run game. We'll see who steps up as their wide receiver 1. And then I don't think you can discount teams like Ohio State and LSU just because you have a bunch of unproven guys.
It's more of a culture thing for the past couple of years, yeah. One thing that shocked me was LSU at 18 on the defensive side. We should be dead last.
Yeah,
I don't think we
should
should
be overreaction
in the top 25. That's a historical, just from a program standpoint. LSU, besides the last 4 years, has had a pretty decent defense.
And all this can change too, like in your different game modes. I mean,
that's true.
Everybody's going to be on their own little island, if you will, because we're going to have transfers. We're going to have different simulation results. I mean, like A&M could fall off the face of the earth and not be the number one place to play anymore, and LSU could turn in a national championship season, and it's going to be dynamic, right? And then that becomes the hardest place to play.
I think that's the beauty of the new game. Last thing before we get into actual real life sports, Futch, Colorado at 8. What do you think?
What a joke!
Yeah, I don't understand.
Because he hates Colorado.
8 losses? Question?
Yeah,
yeah, I don't understand. I don't get it, especially 89 overall. I mean, I'm looking more at the overall than anything. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that are listed as 89, and those teams are Ohio State, LSU, Miami, Colorado, and Missouri. 3 of the 5 teams don't belong in the same category. As far as I'm concerned, your 1As would be Ohio State and LSU. Your 1B would probably be Missouri. And then your D, E, and F would be Miami and Colorado. I don't understand
D, E,
why.
And F. What's the third one?
Just
F.
Yeah, it's just terrible.
Clemson.
Yeah, and Clemson doesn't need to be in the top 10 at all. They barely made a bowl game, and they're lucky
they made
to
the
be part
teams
of
a little too supercharged. Like,
yeah, I don't understand it. If you're gonna base it off of offensive rating and you're taking into account more than just last season, teams that should be filled in spots like this could be, and defense hurts their overall ranking. But at 10, think about TCU that put up God knows how many points every single week when they were playing in the Big 12 and made that run to the national championship. Michigan, one of the best run games in college football, if not the best run game. It seems hard to put those 2 teams in there.
Where's your
Colorado
lines at, man? What about Penn State?
Penn State's never going to be in the top 10 for offensive production. They'll be in the top 10 all day long for defense. But yeah, they're not going to be an offensive team. But Miami doesn't belong anywhere. They don't even belong in the top 25 of offenses.
I'm kind of shocked Iowa is not number 1 for defense, considering how bad their offense is, and they still managed to win games. They're number 13. Obviously, their offense is not even ranked in the top 25, but their defense, I feel like, should be a top 5 defense with the Hawkeyes.
I think defenses mean more, I think, in this game than anything, honestly.
We won't know because we're starting at offense coordinator. So
sure. But I think the defensive rankings make a lot more sense. I mean, they really do. Somebody actually had a head on their shoulders for the most part. 2 teams that don't belong in there is Oregon and Clemson. Those 2 teams do not belong. Oregon at 3 is absolutely insanity, considering every week was a shootout last season. And Clemson doesn't belong there because, well, they don't deserve a 90 overall defense because, well, they don't have any secondary whatsoever, and we saw that firsthand last year. Notre Dame will be in there forever.
Yeah, Dabo's paying the EA Sports creators because he's not paying his players. So let's get over to some free agency talk on the NBA before we throw it to NASCAR Neil. Real quick, big headlines today. Klay Thompson signs a deal with the Dallas Mavericks, 3 years, $50 million, I believe. And then you had yesterday at like 3 a.m., Paul George signs with the 76ers from the Los Angeles Clippers. It was I think he's making like $60 million a year.
I think they're still negotiating
NBA money is crazy.
That's what I was getting to. NBA money is absolutely insane. Chris Paul signs a 1-year deal with San Antonio for $11 million. $11 million for Chris Paul. He was playing before Wembanyama or whatever his last name is was 2 years old. Like, that's insane. There was also DeJounte Murray joins the Pelicans via trade with the Hawks, which is a huge pickup for New Orleans. Now the question remains, will they retain BI? Jacob thinks so.
I think so. But back to the news, I think the biggest one of all that is kind of an eye-opener. Now, they just won the title. Jason Tatum gets a 5-year, $314 million deal. So he's basically a Celtic for life.
60 million. They're a little over 60 million a year.
And they play 82 games.
I understand they play 82 games.
Oh, I'm
right?
just saying that's
But
a cool
Close to
$800,000 a game.
yeah, that's wild.
Well, after bonuses and everything, making the playoffs, it probably is close to $1 million a game.
Yeah, that's NBA.
I mean, NFL, like Burrow's going to make what, they're 50 million, 40 million a year.
Not to mention the Celtics are for sale, by the way.
Yes. Should we pull our money together? Maybe we could make
Can we buy
respectable offer?
1/100th of a percent of, the team, 1/1000th.
It's a lot of money when Dave Portnoy says, "Can anybody loan me a couple billion?" Like he doesn't even have enough money to buy the team. His beloved Celtics. No, I mean the offseason just started. Trade deadline's going crazy. Of course, Bronny James drafted to the LA Lakers. Say what you want say about LeBron. That was cool. It's going to be cool to get to see them both play. What's weird is LeBron is sleeping with his teammate's mother. That's a little strange. What does he call him on the court? Does he say, "Hey, Dad, I'm open. Pass me the ball"? Okay, Bron, here you go. Like, I think they got to work that stuff out. Definitely not an automatic starter. I think he's going to be one of those guys he's really going to have to prove himself. He's on the team. Congratulations. But
I saw people putting him in the starting lineup over Austin Reeves, and it just made me
that's not gonna happen.
Oh my gosh. That's all a joke to me anyways. Honestly, I think it's going to hurt his son more than help in his NBA career. There's going to be so much talk about both of them that it kind of pulls away the light of rookie year, being in the NBA. And a lot of it's going to surround the James family and what are they going to do to, try to win a title together? Look, it's going to happen. We are going to get halfway through the season, if not before the season even starts, and we're going to be talking about, can they be the first father-son duo to win a title?
But you got to admit that'd be pretty cool if they did.
LeBron James is not going to win another NBA title before he retires. I'm telling you. There's
July 1st.
Chance.
You think
I'm
this is last year?
Y'all stole my hidden gem. I thought nobody heard about this story.
I really hope you. Okay, that's Wade. Really flew under the radar there. Do you think this is LeBron's last season?
No, he's still playing at an elite level. He's gonna play for a little bit. I don't think this was a move to just get Bronny in the NBA before LeBron retired. I think this was more of a, hey, you're a LeBron James son. You're going to get a golden ticket to the NBA whenever you want it. There's no point in you playing at some college campus and having to deal with life as a celebrity on a college campus. That's just not a life you're ever going to be able to have. So you might as well just come up to the big leagues and give it a shot. If basketball's for you, then great. If not, then you can say we did it.
I think for the Lakers organization, number one, it hurts because number one, they shouldn't be paying
a brand new coach too.
Right. JJ Redick's making a lot of money, and he's never coached an NBA game or coached a game in general.
He was coaching at the 6th grade elementary school down the street.
Sure, so did I, but I'm not coaching the Lakers. So
you should be.
I don't want to. I'm sorry. Not enough money in the world. I pull a Dan Hurley. I seriously think it hurts them in the long run. It takes a spot that's very valuable to a basketball team in the NBA, because he's probably going to be listed as the 6th or 7th, probably the 7th guy on the bench. But you also have to think about the other guys that are on the bench there too, and the fact that, like you said, how long does LeBron have left? My opinion, probably 2 more seasons.
I think it's 2.
Unless he gets hurt. If he gets hurt, it's probably his last year. Major injury, that is. But, they're paying Anthony Davis way too much money. They got into trouble with that to begin with. They're so far in the hole. And like Wade said, they wanted to get his son in the NBA. That's the thing. He was not going to be drafted by any other team in the NBA, hands down.
Somebody had the perfect opportunity to do one of the funniest things ever: draft him and then sign LeBron and just go all in for a championship run.
That's a lot of leverage.
I think it would have been pretty funny. You could probably have him for a good price too. All right, we talked enough about basketball and football. We got former LSU legend, absolute legend on the sidelines. Some people know the Red Lightning from Florida State. He's our own type of lightning. We got NASCAR Neil joining. The people know you as NASCAR Neil. We know you as Football Neil. Former LSU manager. Neil, how's it going?
Doing good, guys. Doing good.
We've talked about this for a long time. I don't know if I like this with just you on there. Let's do it this way. We've talked about this for a long time. Try to get you on the show when we have a little bit of a slow time in sports. I mean, we spent 25 minutes talking about the video game coming out in 2 weeks. Want to talk about some of the just stories you had, experiences you had as a manager for the Fighting Tigers. Of course, we saw it all from 2016 to 2021 with the or 2019 with the national championship, the losing seasons of 2021. Not losing seasons, 500 seasons, and just everything in between. So, Neil, we're happy to have you on. I don't know where you want to start. What year do you want to start in?
Let's start 2018, or I guess we can do the 16 because y'all wanted to hear about a certain somebody that year.
Yes,
but
Leonard,
I got on staff full time spring of 18, so that's when I really got heavily involved. I was on a volunteer basis the first year and a half I was there, but spring of 2018 was when I got on full time working.
But you met a certain special somebody in 2016, none other than Leonard Fournette. And we're getting old because Leonard's probably not going to be back in the NFL, at least not in a
starting
capacity.
Yeah. So with Leonard, how I became kind of friends with him was my second ever day. I'm a bright-eyed second day ever working there. The team was getting ready to go up to Wisconsin for the Green Bay game. Like I said, at my second day there, I don't know anything was going on. It was a big kind of shock. And Leonard can't find his game cleats. Can't figure out where they're at. Don't know where they were. And it was a Thursday thing. They had me inside to go. They wanted me to see if I could find them. No one could figure out where they were. And they said, Neil, just look for them because we don't know what else have you do today. So I went and looked around for him. After like an hour or so, I found him. And then after practice, he comes in and they told me they found him. They go, oh, who found him? And they pointed at me, who I'm still kind of in shock that some of these guys are around there, you know. And then ever since then, he kind of took a liking to me and we kind of tipped off. After his last game at LSU, gave me his towel from that game, which was kind of funny because we didn't realize it was going to be his last game because he didn't play against A&M that year or the bowl game that year. But still,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. He kind of started the whole bowl game sit-outs. I think back to it. Yeah. So Neil, was there a chance that if you didn't find the cleats until after the team had left for Green Bay, you were tripping it by yourself up to Green Bay, driving like a bat out of hell to get there?
No,
you wouldn't have done that for Leonard.
I wouldn't. I was too young to even have that opportunity to do something like that. But the likelihood he would have just worn a practice pair. But a lot of guys were very particular about the cleats they wore, especially for games. They wanted that pair that fit just right, kind of thing. You know.
It means everything. You got to make sure you got the right traction.
Going on. I had some D linemen because I worked with the D line for the bulk of my career. I was with outside linebackers a little bit in 18 and 19, but those two positions worked side by side. There weren't really much differentiation. They did a lot of the same drills together. So I was around those guys a lot. And I had multiple D linemen that would wear the most rattiest looking torn up shoes, but they insisted on wearing them for games. I don't have to spend an hour or so Thursday night just scrubbing them clean, trying to get them ready so they look at least halfway decent for the games.
We're a big brand, man. We can't be out there with some ratty ass cleats.
There was a certain style that for the D linemen they discontinued, and certain bigger name guys had the ability to pull some of the leftover pairs off the shelf to get to wear it, and they insisted on wearing them every single day. And I was like, guys, can you not wear something newer and nicer where at least have a pair that you'll only wear on Saturdays? Nope, wear them every day. Particularly Neil Farrell was particularly bad about that. wanting a certain pair of shoes every single week.
Your name twin.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, working with D linemen, who was the biggest freak of an athlete that you saw come through there?
Pure talent wise, it would have to be a guy that I only was with for a spring, which was Makai Wingo. When I saw him my last spring there, his technical ability I thought was just up there. I've seen a lot of guys who were good in college. Not many of the guys really made it in the NFL. I think the only one still playing is Fehoko, who I like a lot. He was a really good dude. But I thought Wingo was very talented. I think Rashard Lawrence was a big dude that was really good and really all-around good dude to be around.
And I also wanted to ask you, we were talking about toughest places to play. You've been to all the SEC stadiums, right? You've knocked them
I've been to all of 2 of the original 14. Okay. I've obviously not been to Texas, Oklahoma. I did not go to South Carolina or Georgia, but I've been to the other 12.
You didn't make the trip to Texas in 2019?
I did not get to go to that game. I sadly
I think he was in our apartment.
Oh yeah, he was.
No, I wasn't. I was at the B-Dose, but my apartment actually getting hammered.
There you go. What do you think about
even better?
Yeah, it's an even better place to be.
Before we get into that season, though, I want to go back to the 2016 season because Neil and I, if y'all don't know, we're both, well, Chet too as well, but me and Neil came from far away from LSU to come to LSU. Didn't really grow up LSU fans.
Call myself far away.
Well, I know. That's why I said.
And I grew up an LSU fan. I don't think you could jump me into this conversation.
I did too. I was going to say
we grew up out of state, but you grew up out of state too. So that's why. We get here and we lose to Wisconsin, as you mentioned. We have a 100-year flood. The Tiger dies. Les Miles gets canned 3 weeks into your tenure on the LSU. I know you weren't on the staff.
I forgot about all of this. This was an insane year.
I know it was a great freshman year. Let's be honest.
How in the world did you survive that and get on the staff? And then you were there for not only 1 but 2 coaching changes, and I know the first of which they brought in Ed Orgeron, and y'all were quite close. But talk about that transition from getting your shot to then making the staff with a whole new coaching staff.
So when O took over, I'd only been there a little bit. And most of my first year on staff, that's fall, I worked Thursdays, and they had mostly just get ready for the weekend game, helping them clean up for the helmet nights and get the bags packed kind of thing. That's what I did most of my first year. I do remember one of my first days I went out to practice, and all the young volunteers, trainees, as we called them, always got stuck with D-line because they always had the most equipment to use. And I remember just hearing O yell from across the field. I'm down the hallway, and I hear this voice yelling. I'm like, who is that yelling? And the D-line manager at the time, a guy named Joe Hoffman, was like, oh, that's Coach O that you may remember from the blind side. I'm like, what? I had no idea who he was, like, whatever. And then he get named.
And you had no idea what he was saying.
You might remember him from the blind side. What a pull.
That's what
Not that he's the defensive lineman coach.
Yeah, that's the guy told me. I was like, oh, okay. And then like that transition really wasn't much for me because, again, I wasn't on staff every day. I know a lot of the guys that were there had a lot of that. They were a lot of part of that transition. But then a bulk of my time was under the Coach O era, especially when I was on staff. And then that changed when between Kelly to BK with the interim of Brad Davis was when I was kind of on my way out my last spring. I was in 2 classes. I was just going in, because I was on scholarship and had to work through it. And it was interesting, kind of changed. A lot of stuff happened with Kelly bringing his own culture kind of thing. A lot of coaches I was liked weren't there anymore. And it's kind of a weird, kind of almost lame duck-esque spring. I made the best I could. Me and they were going to throw me with this random position to get through my spring. But then the new D-line coach had heard about me and I was good with D-lines. Like, I want him. And my boss, Lou, was like, no, we need somebody that's going to be there in the fall. I mean, that's a heavy, inducive position. He goes, no, I want him. Like, okay, cool. That was a big shift for me, honestly, because Coach O ran most of the D-line stuff during practice during his era because he's the D-line coach at heart. And having to get out of how Coach O liked it his particular way. He wanted it a certain way every time. And I learned that way, and I learned kind of how to deal with Coach O, and I got really close to them during my time there to the point where I would go ask him stuff before practice. I'm like, hey, Coach, we got this going on. If we were inside or something different was a little different, I'd be like, hey, how do you want this done for this situation just to make it a little bit smoother? And then I remember one day he's like, one day during practice, he asked me to change it one way. And then the next time we were in that same situation, I was like, hey, do we do it like that way? He goes, yeah. Afterwards, he goes, no, let's not do that way. I'm like, all right, coach, whatever you want me to do, I'll get it set up for you, and it was a good relationship. And I really wasn't that terrified of him, except for I think one of my first days as an actual D lineman that first spring, I think I snapped the ball in the wrong cadence, and he threatened to send me to the stadium to run bleachers.
He said, you're doing Oklahoma drill right now.
And like
Tyler Shelby.
And it's one of those things like I just got on staff, and I'm a little nervous because yeah, I'm on staff. I'm trying to make sure I don't screw up because especially him being the head coach. And I just remember looking up at my boss and him just being like calm me, other hand, like, calm, you're good, calm down, you're fine. And then fast forward 2 years later, and me and Coach are close as can be, and had a really good relationship, to the point where we played Vandy. He came to me that week and was like, hey, you're from Nashville. I want to meet your parents after the game. They're coming.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
After the Vandy game, which I was super dehydrated, cramping up.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it was hot. It was like early season. I was cramping up on that hot turf, and I'm in there like walking around, my legs cramping. And the team was leaving from the opposite corner of the stadium, and I had to go out there because he wanted to meet my parents. I was like, head coach wants you to do this. You'll do it, And I got back. It was giving all that crap because I was too cramped to walk 5 minutes before them. But of course, I jumped at it to go do that, and I got a lot of crap because I was fairly close to him, and he would yell at other people for my screw ups, but not me. And that created a little tension there for a little while, but it was still kind of funny. He was he's very kind to me over the years.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. To talk about that relationship with him, we all hated to see him go, but it's a business. That's football. But that relationship with Coach O, how many Red Bulls did he drink pregame? What was the count there?
I don't know. I was always the outside guy. Like, you guys know me. I like to be physical labor, doing that kind of stuff. I was always an outside crew. I would run inside right before the game started. Take quick leak before the game started. I'd be stuck outside the whole time. But I don't know. He was just always good to me, and I didn't have anything really bad with him. I worked a lot of summer, so I was there a lot of summertime, and I had a lot more responsibility in the summertime. So but yeah.
Do you ever take it down to the bayou?
No.
Take you alligator hunting or something?
No.
Let's talk about that 2019 team. Or Wade, you had a question about Joe Burrow and Miles Brennan and that relationship. Why don't you go with that one?
Yeah, so before that 2019 season that we're about to get into, Coach O had a decent couple of years. I think he wasn't on the hot seat by any means, but he had a decision to make because Danny Etling was gone, and Miles Brennan, I think, had been there a year, but he wasn't the surefire starter. And I think Justin McMillan actually won the job out the spring, but Coach O decided to bring in a backup from Ohio State, Joe Burrow. And look, my claim to fame or infamy is that I was like, oh, this is a bad move. We should just develop Miles Brennan. We could have 3 really good years with him. Maybe we could get to the Outback Bowl. Well,
boy, were you wrong.
So I think Joe Burrow was the move. What was it like in that locker room? Were y'all committed to Miles or Justin and didn't want the outsider, or did Joe kind of take the team over right away?
I think it was kind of slow. He built the trust over this summer with some guys like Foster Moreau, who he became good friends with, kind of getting there. Because remember that Joe was, that was his. He was coming in with 2 years eligibility. He had been in the program for a while, and I just remember hearing when he came in to visit, he was all about football. He didn't care about the other stuff. All he wanted to know about was the X's and O's, what was going on. And it was Justin McMillan and Scotty something. There was another guy, quarterback, I forget who. And when they transferred during fall camp, and granted, that was my first fall camp. We were in the transition because we were doing the renovations at the football at operations. We were going back and forth. And I just remember whenever those guys left, we kind of and we saw how good he was. Again, I was a defensive guy. I was always with the defense. So I didn't really see a lot of that stuff during those days, so I really can't speak on that side of the ball because, again, first season, I'm keep my head down, focusing on my outside American D-line. I was also the field setup guy, so I was a lot during those early team periods. I was out there getting the field picked up, ready, wrapping up the day. So I really didn't see a lot of that. But the one thing I knew that kind of solidified it was opening game against Miami at, not, just down the road from where I live now, at AT&T, a fight broke out and he went up in the front and was like, "Hey, you want me? Here I am." And that kind of got, get all the guys behind him, and 18 really, they really weren't a bad team. I mean, we made the Fiesta Bowl, we made the New Year's Six Bowl that year. And
beat
that
the
game, I
national
remember,
champions, man. The national champions in UCF.
We ended their 2-year winning streak, winning streak, and that was a fun
got
game.
Knocked into another dimension, and then he, that's when he was born.
And we had like no DBs that game, if I remember correctly. We had nobody played in secondary. I forget all the injuries and some people opt out. I just remember that game was kind of wild, But
and no Jamar Chase, no Justin Jefferson at that point either. I mean, our receivers were a shell of what they were.
Yeah, and then we rolled into that next spring and that next summer, and I was like, this team's special. Like
was there an aura around the 2019 team going into spring?
I personally, so I remember texting my mom, who's a big football fan, and you guys have met her. She's diehard football, and I remember saying, this team's special. Didn't give any details because y'all know I was pretty tight-lipped on a lot of stuff going on. I took that rule very serious of what happens there stays there. We didn't
even know who 18 was until the team announced. We're best friends with Neil. He wouldn't even give us any inside information.
I mean, we had a rule: what you see here stays here when you leave here.
Vegas.
And I was very, very strict on that. And you guys know, y'all ask me stuff, and I'm like, no, I can't say anything.
But you did tell us the same thing. You did tell us the team would be special. Yeah. You said the offense is finally there, and we looked at you like, yeah, right. We've heard this. Burrow looked better than Etling and whoever, Brandon Harris, but we didn't think he was going to be the highest.
But I remember you guys were like kind of like mad at me for a while because in 19 we were just so busy. I remember like a couple nights you'd be like, "Hey, let's meet for dinner," and I'm like, "I'll be there when I get there." I remember the first night I met Elise that night when I came from practice. I came like an hour late from practice. I mean, you guys had walk-ons that night. I remember I was like, "You guys like, what's going on?" Like, "Oh, long day," And you're like, "What happened?" I'm like, can't say anything. And then of course the news broke 2-3 days later of what happened at practice that day, and you're like, "Oh, you didn't say anything." I'm like,
that's I wanted to talk about that. Are you referring to the famous fight now between what was it, Patrick Queen and Joe Burrow? And that's when it was like,
it could have been that day. A lot of stuff happened that year. Like that was both sides were very competitive. Both sides were very, very talented. I mean, and people want to give the offense a lot of credit that year, but really that defense was just as good as the offense was. And that's like half the battle. Like as we all know, you can have a great offense and terrible defense and not do anything. That defense was just as good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Talk about that day. I mean, did you see the fight? Were you around for it?
I may have. I honestly could have been. I think I was spotting that period. But again, I'm in there locked on doing my duty. Like as I said, you guys know me. Like when I'm working, I focus on what I'm supposed to be doing. I kind of drown out a lot of other stuff. And there'll be days like we'll be talking after practice as we're like huddled up, wrapping up, waiting on the players to wrap up so we can leave. And they'll mention stuff, and I'm like, when that happened? They go, it happened in front of me. Like, I had no idea. I just remember something happened beside me, and I'm over there trying to train the ball spot or get the ball back from another play. It was like, but again, that's just my personality wise, as you guys know.
What was your favorite game during your tenure to be a part of?
Favorite game outside the Natty and playoff, probably. You got to kind of exclude those two. Probably those were just special. I remember that Auburn game in 2019. That was probably one of the most games.
Scary one.
But that was a game that I knew going into. If we're gonna lose the game this year, that was gonna be the game because I just knew their D line was that good, and I'd seen the D line stuff, and I'm like, and again, by that point, I had worked for D line. It was my second year working D line. I knew good D line. I started to learn what good D line play was like. This will be the game we'll lose if we lose one. And I just remember like stressing, and I was like, man, that game was.
That was the last second field goal, right, to win it?
I think so.
Yeah, we won like 21-17 or something.
It was 23-20.
Yeah, I think it was 23-20. What's his name?
A lot of the Auburn games were really good. I mean, we had a comeback from behind with DJ Chark's punt return. We had the year comeback our freshman year.
Kid York was kicking, huh?
That was 2018. I wasn't at the game. I was with a few former managers at one of the guys' house in Denham Springs. We were there, at his pool, watching in the pool house, as we watched it. I remember us going crazy when we saw it, But probably another memorable game was the game that I still stand by that we won it 5 times, and it's fueled my hatred for that ever since
the Texas A&M game,
2018.
7 overtimes.
And you mentioned earlier you kind of alluded earlier about the toughest place to play. We kind of really didn't get to that. I think Kyle Field is one of those places that is really tough to play. I've been there 3 times. I've been there 3 times, and we've yet to win when I've been there. So I'm not going this year. I have some friends from church that you want to go. I'm like, nah, I'm not going back there till we win there.
And that's what I wanted to get your perspective, because you're actually on the sidelines. We can sit and talk all we want, and I was shocked, but to hear, okay, maybe Texas A&M has something going on.
That's true. We can't win there, so maybe so.
I was at Bama in 2022, a game that the managers were like, can we just lose this game because we're so bad? We were trying not to go to bowl. We were like, some of us were like, it wouldn't be bad to have the whole month of December off again this year. And then, of course, we ended up beating A&M at the end of the year, and we go, oh, great, we're going to a bowl game. Of course, it's the last bowl game. We go, dang it, if we just beat Bama, then maybe we would have been to a better bowl game that year.
Yeah.
But I've also got to play in some cool things. I went to 5 NFL stadiums. I've been to the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl was a special thing.
What's your coolest stadium besides Tiger Stadium, obviously? I mean, that's a no-doubter.
Coolest, let me see. I like Missouri a lot. I thought that was a really cool stadium. I thought I think it's kind of underrated the way it sits in that bowl with that hillside there. I think it's kind of cool. NFL stadium is Atlanta. Atlanta was such a cool NFL stadium.
Was that the new one? You got to go to the new one, yeah.
Yeah, it was for the Peach Bowl. I spent Christmas Day there. It was Christmas morning in the stadium. We're blasting Christmas music through the PA system as we're setting up. Like, this is kind of a funny kind of thing. Least favorite NFL stadium, I know you guys will give me shit for it, is New Orleans.
I don't blame you.
That place is I think number 2 is probably Jerry World. Jerry World's really nice. Arizona was not bad. It was just super cold. Like, we played there in December, but it's like an indoor stadium. I only pack my game shorts. Like, I don't need pants for this game. We're inside. I've never been more cold at a game probably in my life besides that game. I was in shorts. I remember putting on this paste stuff that players put on their arms during. I remember putting it on my legs to try to block the cold off my legs, and it didn't work. I'm like, this stuff was. I was like, all right, it was just freezing cold. But like, at least we won. That's all that mattered. We won that game at the end of the day. I was like, we just need to do something. It was just, but Houston wasn't bad. We're there twice that year. We were there because of the hurricane.
Yeah.
And then we were there at the end of the year. It wasn't terrible, but again, we were there, we lost Kansas State, and it was kind of a weird kind of game,
Yeah, you got half your team missing, your wide receivers playing quarterback. Let's see. You got anything else? I know NASCAR also has NASCAR news for us, but before we get to that one, make sure we wrap up the LSU manager.
Oh, I do got something here to show the camera.
What do we got? The national championship ring. Look at there. Jacob, you see one of those? Penn State will never have one.
We've got 2. It's okay.
And people want to stout is actually mine or not. It has my name on the side of it.
There you go. Oh, hold on. You got to get a little closer.
Oh, you're blurred out.
Yeah.
There it is.
Redacted.
Yeah.
Yeah, redacted.
Yeah.
Stolen.
No, but because I haven't been like, oh, that's not like, no, that has my actual name on it. That was mine. I got that year. And it was cool to get it because we wanted because we got it during COVID. They had the big announcement. I was back at home in Tennessee. My boss like, hey, that you're gonna be here in a week. Do you mean to overnight them to your house so you can show your family? I'm like, sure, why not? And I just remember showing up.
Scary shipment.
Wait, they overnighted those to you?
Yeah, they were. And I literally, the thing is though, so
imagine COVID, the mail was so screwed up. Imagine
so they overnighted me FedEx. I was at my dad's house. I was at our family farm. I was going to work with my dad a lot during that summer just to stay busy. And my boss like, hey, it'll be here tomorrow. And I got up that morning, first in the morning, drove the 30 minutes from my dad's to my mom's house, and I got there. There's a package on the front step. Like, I was like, what? It's already. I was like, this just was sitting on the patio. On the front porch. I was like, okay. I feel like this is awesome.
Imagine porch pirate snags that bad boy.
Oh my god!
I know, because and I got up first thing in the morning, drove I got home by like 8:30, 9 o'clock. When I woke up early that morning, Joe, and I was like, I'll be there. I'll be at the house when he shows up. pulled in the park. I was like, oh, that package there. That's probably it was dressed me. I was like, oh, okay.
A little early.
We've just been sitting out here.
Do you ever wear it out?
I typically wear it to weddings one time because it's just so big. It's just like I'll put it on my hand and just see how big it is on my. It's like
conversation starter.
It's so big on my hand, but I do wear it every year on January 13th. I wear it every year on the anniversary.
Yeah, Big Mike wears his when we go watch games together. That's it.
Yeah, it's just too big and it hurts your hand after a while.
He wears all three. He wears the semifinal and the play or the SEC, the Peach Bowl.
That's also have that too.
See, I've got my ring, so
yeah, I've got mine too. This one's a real expensive one.
Yeah.
I had to buy mine. It's a ripoff.
You don't even have diamonds in it, Wade.
All right, I have one more Neil question on football, and then I want to hear it in NASCAR. Okay. All right, so we see it in the movies. They pluck the manager off the end of the bench. In basketball, they put him in the game. He hits the game-winning shot. If they put you in the game, Neil, what position are you playing? And do you think you could record a stat, or would you just get completely pancaked?
I would. And something else I didn't touch on of what I did during the game, because I know you guys used to love what I did during the game.
Yeah, walk us through what it looks like, and then if you would get absolutely
pissed off the opposing coach.
That was funny.
I did.
Tell us about that. Actually, scrap my question. Talk about that.
I used to be on the visiting team sideline. I was a ball boy on the visiting sideline. I was a ball boy for a bulk of my career. First couple of years, I was always home games, visiting sideline, which is the secondary sideline. Not much happened, but then 2019, we're playing Mississippi State, and I'm on their sideline, which is the lead sideline, being the lead ball boy. And I think I was solo that game because for some reason or other, sometimes on the road they'll give me a second guy to help deep play or whatnot. And I get yelled at the first half saying, "Stay away from where you're at." I'm like, "No, I got to be here in case a turnover happens." Big deal.
It's Mississippi State turnovers are going to happen.
Yeah, and it was their director of ops started yelling at me like, "Get out of here, blah blah." And then, and I'm not a confrontation person. You guys know that I don't like confrontation. I like to, And then second half, I go talk to the refs. I go, "No, you got to be here." And Mississippi State's their equipment staff and our staff are very close. We know those guys very well. They're good people. They're one of their former head of football guys is now the Patriots. Good dude. I've known him since I first got there. And I was like, "Hey, what do I do?" He's like, "Nah, just do it." And there was a play where I was outside the box, aka 20-20-yard line on defense, and a turnover happens, and the refs look at me like, I had to come from way down the other end of the field because I wasn't allowed to be here. And the refs looked around, and it was a big kind of deal. It was kind of a big deal. And I was like, and during that game, one of their managers got in a fight with Brian Madden, who's the big state trooper guy. You'd always see on the sideline, In the post game, it was like I was just jacked up. I was so offended. I've never had issues. I've been doing this at that point I worked probably close to 20 games, had no issues till then. I was like, I was jacked
I seem to remember a story you told us about you and a certain head coach getting into it one time. It may have been in Mississippi State, but I think it was another team.
I never had issues with the head coach. I had Mike Leach came up to me during the game and asked me what my favorite type of ice cream was.
Wait,
Wait, ice cream?
No, he was like, "Hey, what's your favorite type of ice cream?" I was like, "I don't eat ice cream. You guys know me. I don't eat ice cream." So, for some reason, Rocky Road was the first thing that came to my mind. And he goes, "Okay." Turns out that's his favorite type of ice cream. He's very public about loving Rocky Road. And he's walked away. And I was like, "This is so awkward." And I was like, and I just thought it was kind of funny. And when he died, I was like, "This is kind of sad, but at least I have a Mike Leach memory."
Did you eat Rocky Road that day in
No. I don't ice cream, guys.
Didn't your mom also go to an all-inclusive resort with Mike Leach?
She ran into him at a bar in Key West, and he bought her a drink one time, 10
so you might have another connection to Mike Leach.
It might be your father.
No, I mean, it was 15 years ago. She was in Key West doing something other, and she ran into him, which him being known to love always be in Key West. But yeah. It was
back to Wade's question about do you think you could
no.
afford
to you can get on that D line and
you guys know how athletic. You guys know how athletic I am. I'm not very athletic at all. I couldn't do anything.
Hit him with that underhand toss.
No. I think you could play fullback and lay somebody out.
No,
for Leonard.
My stamina is not there. Let's be honest, guys. My stamina is nowhere near.
You just gotta hit the first guy.
Yeah. You don't need stamina to be a fullback. I mean, come on. You got to run 5 yards at the most.
I'm doing another funny story. I was given a concussion during pregame. During I think it was 2019 maybe. During pregame, John Emery gave me a concussion pregame, and I worked the entire game.
What's funny is John Emery is still on the roster. That's how long he's been at LSU.
Yeah, it was.
What happened? How did he give you a concussion?
I was on the sideline getting ready for the D-line pregame stuff, and I heard somebody yell my name. Probably one of you guys. You probably yelled my name or someone in pregame. I turned around and looked at who was yelling my name, and I was on the edge of the sideline. And it's one of the early rules you learn is not to turn your back to the field. And he just knocks me into a little kid. I felt so bad. I got up. I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Had no issues. Worked the entire game. That night, my mom was in town. We went to the movies, and I was like, I kind of don't feel good. Then next day, I got up, went studying, went to the trainers, and they go, yeah, you might, just be careful. Next day, I go to take a test, and I zone out halfway through the test. Had no idea where I was.
Yep, that's a concussion there, Neilio.
Hey, but I still beat the curve on that test. I was like, I don't know how I beat the curve on this test. I was like, and then it was.
He knocked some sense into you.
It was one of those. That was a fun one. It was just kind of funny. And John was always so apologetic to me the rest of the time. He was like, I feel so bad I gave you concussion because I went in Monday practice was easy, and then after practice I went and saw the doctor and I go, yeah, you have concussion. I was like,
well,
okay.
You could have played O-line or something. They could have put you in. You could have had a little block, just knock somebody out.
I mean, I also am convinced I had the most injuries when I was there. Like I had a concussion, I had pneumonia once during the season. Like I had I got pneumonia during the UCLA game.
Jeez, you're in California, man. What the heck you getting pneumonia from?
I don't know. I got there and I was sick. And I came back in the day after we got back, and I went to the walk-in clinic down in Highland. They go, yeah, you have pneumonia. I'm like, so I can't do anything for work the next day. Yeah, so I had to take it easy at work for a week, which again, not my personality. I was like trying to do stuff, and they go, no, you can't lift anything heavy. You can't do anything hard. I'm like, but I got to do my job. And they go, no, take it easy. I'm like, okay, but yeah.
What was it like at the Rose Bowl, though? I mean, that's another neat stadium to get to be at.
It was cool. My cousin, who's a brother to me, is a diehard Texas fan when he was little. So I went and stood where Vince Young had his famous diving catch. And their locker room has portraits painted on the walls, all the historic moments from that stadium. It was cool to see those on the wall. It was a cool kind of thing. Beautiful stadium. It was just accumulation of us being in Houston for a week, then going over there, the red-eye flight back. It was just, yeah, it was fun.
Not a fun time. So I think that's all we got for football. You said you had a little bit of a NASCAR update for us in the mid-season war, so let's have it.
I want to start with yesterday. Yesterday was at the race I went to last year at Nashville. It was extremely hot there. They moved it to the afternoon. It was 100 degrees outside. The in-car temps were showing 120. I was listening today that on the spotters on the roof, it was 160 degrees up there. And it was
I believe it.
It was brutal. I mean, it was pretty intense first stage. I actually missed the first part of the race, but then I go home to catch the end, and a rain delay happens. Because, of course, NASCAR comes to town, it's going to rain. Mm-hmm. They luckily re-showed the first half. But the rain kind of caused all the rubber to wash away. It became a new track. Ended up being a pretty solid run. Bell was dominant all early. But then the end got kind of crazy. We went to a record 5 overtimes for Cup Series.
5? Golly.
Because in overtime works is it's 2 laps, and if a wreck happens on the first lap before they take the white flag, they re-rack them. And there was issues of guys running on fuel. It was already going to be a tight fuelage before. You had drivers running out of fuel, all kinds of stuff. It ended up being wild with Joey Logano pulling it off, which created a lot of intensity for the cut line. He was the one guy above the cut line. I think he was +1 going into the day, with the next guy +50. So the guys that were fighting right on that line lost all their hope really to make it there. So that was pretty intense there. It was, it kind of shook some stuff up. But the big thing I was going to cover was the silly season, which is the offseason. It's been probably the wildest it's been in a long time. So I'm going to get to that in 1 second.
I got to get a swig because it's so crazy.
No, I'm just the first big thing was Stewart-Haas Racing announced about a month ago they were shutting down at the end of the year. They were selling 3 of the 4 charters with with originally they were supposed to all 4, but then Gene Haas, the original owner of the team, announced he's keeping one charter to run it. The man's a billionaire and likes the sport. Has been in the sport. He's in F1. He's in all kinds of other forms of racing. So, but it is expected that Front Row has already bought one of those charters officially. It is expected that 2311 will buy one in Trackhouse as well. Trackhouse kind of has to do something because they have SVG coming up and Zane Smith, who are both under contract for them, and they need a third ride to figure that out. My guy Martin Truex Jr. announced he's retiring. He's been in the sport for 21 years, Cup champion, 2-time Xfinity champion. But he has said he is not retiring He's not retiring completely from racing. He'll be around. So a lot of people surprised. People figured he would retire, just be on his boat fishing every day. He's a big fisherman, hunter kind of thing. But he's running part time. And teammate Denny Hamlin
is he still going to drive part time, or he's just
part time? He said he'll probably do about 10 races at most. And Denny Hamlin, the owner of 2311, Michael Jordan, they are able to run. That a team can only run 4 cars, and his team Jogies Racing can't run additional car. But Hamlin has said that anytime he wants a car, all he has to do is call him, which is nice for a teammate to be like, "Hey, I got a ride if you ever want one."
Yeah,
I can see him running the Daytona 500 because he's never won it. He's never won it. He's never won a plate race ever. So I can see him running Daytona. But it is nice that his team is like, hey, if he ever wants to get in it, I can see him running some Xfinity stuff part-time because that team has been running a all-star car, so to say, with some filling people here and there. That's kind of big. They did announce last week that Chase Briscoe, the driver of the 14 car for Stewart-Haas, which is shutting down, is taking over that ride, which I kind of mentioned it 2 weeks ago. You guys didn't get to it when I mentioned it. But Christopher Bell, the driver for that team, let it leak during his Friday media that 2 weeks ago that Chase was coming to drive for the team. But then it was kind of like a big deal. But he won 2 races that weekend. They kind of were like, okay, you can get away with it because you won first twice, But I did love for the press conference they did last Tuesday, they had him come out and make the introduction. But it's like, good, at least you're playing into the funness of everything. Like, hey, he got a lot of introduced it, that whole team is staying. That crew chief is staying. Everybody on that team is staying because that car is very much a win now. They don't have a win this year, but they're fast every week. And even though they have a lot of drivers in that pipeline for Toyota, they decided to have a Cup ready driver who had a win 2 years ago at Phoenix. He's got talent. He was running up front yesterday for a while before the gas mileage kind of happened. Which will be exciting to see what he can do in an actual competitive car. Michael McDowell is leaving Front Row to go to Spire, which is kind of surprised a lot of people because he's been with that team from the very beginning pretty much and has been consistent. He's got some wins for them the last couple of years, and that team just got Tier 1 support. But apparently they were only wanting him to sign like 1-year deals. And he's like, I want to go somewhere with a long-term deal. But Front Row now they do have 2 spots now with him leaving and then buying the charter. It is expected that Noah Gragson will probably take one of those rides. It hasn't been officially announced, but he has been funding and he's been pretty consistent this year after getting kicked out of a ride last year. The last spot, no one really knows. There'll probably be another driver from Stewart-Haas, whether it be Cole Custer from Xfinity or whatnot. But and then Wood Brothers, the oldest team in the sport, is expected to fire their driver Harrison Burton, who's been lackluster. What? Yeah, it's been very lackluster. I mean, he's been there 2 years and he hasn't really much to show with it. But today it got a rumor was going around from people in the media from other shows list to that a Stewart-Haas driver without funding is going there, which likely means Josh Berry, who's one of my guys. I love him. I think he's really talented. He's been really fast this year with Stewart-Haas. And if I had to guess, his crew chief, who's considered one of the best in the garage, is probably going to go with him. That will supposedly probably be announced too soon from what I was listening to. But yeah, but we are halfway through the season. So we're got to get ready for the, towards the playoffs. We have just 6 races to go, before the playoffs. So that's going to be interesting of who can make it there. I think there's 4 or 5 open slots right now. Truex is pretty much locked in. He's plus 100 and something to the cut line. Too. Yes. He won top. He won the race last year. He hasn't got a win, but he's been consistent. He's plus 150 or plus 100 something to the cut. Unless something wild happens, he just falls off the face of the earth or we get 6 new winners. The only way he can probably not make it. But we do have Daytona still.
Yeah.
But we do still Daytona. We got the Indianapolis Oval for the first time. This car will be interesting. We got 2 road courses, and then Darlington is moving to the cutoff race this year due to the Olympics being on NBC, which I'm kind of bummed that I love that racetrack. I love watching that race, but I'll be in Vegas during that game watching LSU play. So
hey,
I will sadly miss that game.
No?
What? Yeah. No, but as you guys, most years I have 2 TVs set up to watch both because LSU always plays on that Sunday, and it makes me aggravated to view that I have to watch both at the same time.
4 years in a row now?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much ever since I got to
all of them except for the Miami one. The Miami one.
But I wasn't following NASCAR as closely back then. But the last 2 years I've had to do the double TVs and catch up both of them. Right now I will say probably my front runners have to be Larson and Bell and probably Hamlin. Bell especially is intriguing to me if he can make it to the Final Four, because he's got wins at some other flat ovals, short ovals, and which are similar to Phoenix. So I think if he can make the Final Four, he's got a really good shot at winning it. But Blaney's been good. He got the win. The reigning champion got a win at Iowa the other day. Ford started off pretty sluggish, but they've been pretty consistent the last month, getting speed as a whole. But I'm kind of intrigued by Elliott and Byron. But Byron started off with 3 wins early in the year, but it's been kind of sluggish in the summer. But as we know, all sports that have a long season, if you get hot at the right time, really good there. And Elliott's been, I think he hasn't finished outside the top 20 all year this year, and has been consistent. I think he was tied for the points lead before yesterday. I think he's now lost that to Larson. He was tied to him going into this week, but I think he fell. So it's going to be interesting, really to see, who gets hot the next month as we go in the playoffs. And really, we've seen the last couple of years, a driver can just be right there and as the playoffs start and just get a couple wins here and there, and just advance on the wins through the rounds, because if you get a race win in a round, you move on, so. But also, consistency is key. And as we also enter a couple of the repeat tracks that we go to for a second time, so it'll be interesting of who found something late in those races and are ready to go. So yeah.
Well, that's good to hear, Neil. Halfway through, and we'll see who finishes it off.
We do go back to Chicago this week, where SVG got that surprising win last year, which would be interesting. And he is running it again this year. He's running part-time,
maybe
some limited cup stuff, full-time Xfinity. So it'll be interesting to see what he does and see how guys do the second time at the street course. It doesn't look like rain. It was very rainy last year, so that kind of played into his experience of being used to a street course and a little wet kind of stuff. Where, it should be a fun race. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with it.
Well, we'll have the update next week as well. Find out if SVG repeated. But minus the NASCAR, we appreciate you coming on and giving us some stories about LSU football. Like I said, we've been trying to do this for a while, and it lined up good this week. So I think that's all we've got tonight for the show. We're going to kind of wrap it here. Make sure you subscribe to get NASCAR News updates every week. Maybe we can convince them to do some sort of video. We've talked about that in the past. We'll have to see. And also subscribe, because we're going to have fantasy football updates starting up here soon. Tyler was going to start it tonight, but, Mother Nature had other plans. And then as well as we're going to start breaking down the conferences, start with the SEC, and then also going to NFL, start with NFC South and AFC South. So make sure you stay tuned to that. Neil, I appreciate you joining us tonight.
Always, guys. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for joining. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Neil, can we get like a "Let's Go NASCAR"? So some sort of saying to actually, you know what? I got you one better. Where is it here?
Your intro music.
Start your engine.
There you go.
Replicate it.
I do like it. No.
Okay. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we will catch you on next week.
Cool.